Okay. Today is, ready? Are we good? Today is December 11th, 2024, Town of Southington Board of Finance meeting. It's 7 p.m. and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
So it's a start.
Okay, we'll do a roll call, please.
Mr. Lebenik.
Here.
Mr. Pocock Jr.
Here.
Mr. Beaudoin.
Here.
Ms. Mazzarella.
Here.
Mr. Stanforth.
Here.
Chair Larry.
Here, we have a quorum.
We have a quorum. We have a unanimous quorum.
Okay, there are no public hearing items, so we'll go to two items of old business. The approval of the minutes from November 13th. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of November 13th.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right, the minutes are approved for November 13th. November 13th, we also had an executive session.
Motion to approve the executive session of November.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the executive session? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain? All right, the executive session carries, and just so everybody knows, we don't really have minutes of the executive session. All we say is who went in it, how long we were in it, and what the overall topic was. So-
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to add to the schedule as item 6, number 5, to the ARPA funds to be used on West Main Street.
Okay, we have a motion to add the West Main Street ARPA funds as an item for discussion.
That'd be item 11,
Item,
Roman numeral 11.
I'll second that.
No, that's not what you had. Oh, wait,
Okay.
yes, I did it backwards, didn't I? It's been a long time.
I thought you would like Roman numerals. You were around back then.
all right, Roman numeral 11.
Whoa.
Oh, listen here, we're going to have to get rid of you. One more
You
outburst.
can tell he's retiring, huh?
Okay, any objection to that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Bless you.
Okay, so we added that on.
And, Mr. Chairman, are we adding anything for the calendar?
Yes, let's make a motion to add a discussion and approval of the 2025 regular Board of Finance meeting calendar.
Where would you like to have that?
I'd like to have it, let's have it after subcommittee reports.
Can you have,
Roman numeral 6.
can you change that, Mr. Chairman, to calendar 2025? That's all you need to put
Calendar,
For-
that's
for
fine.
for Angela, for the min-
Semantics.
for the-
Calendar
for the minutes.
2025.
Yep.
We'll put it in Roman numeral number 6, item number 6.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstain. Okay, we'll move that on, then we'll talk the calendar, give our vice chair a little time to work the numbers. Okay, let's talk about our financial assessment. Years ago, we looked at this agenda, we added on a section where we just sit back and review our revenue, we review our expenses, and we just take a health check of the patient, our town. So, Mr. Bose, if you would please take us through where we are with revenue, and then we'll go where we are with expenses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as you can see on the, hopefully just a simple summary of the 6 major items that we keep track of when it comes to the revenues, prior year taxes, interest on taxes, building permits and fees, interest income, town clerk fees, and any state grants that might have come in better or worse. And the total of those items through, that should say through November 2024, my apologies for that, approximately $760,000 to the good.
Okay, and just for the record, I want to make note that we lost a revenue sharing grant of $800,000, so we had anticipated income of $800,000, and we were notified the state will not be giving us the $800,000. That has not happened before. That's a new
Wrinkle to the.
a new wrinkle here. And so when revenue's down, that's a stressor on the budget. Fortunately, we had interest income and some other things to make up for it. So, you know, in the number, we are 760 to the positive, but we lost 800,000. So that's, I guess, a testament to some conservative revenue budgeting.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Stanforth?
On the town clerk fees, is there something driving that, one or two items? Sometimes you have a.
It's been relatively consistent. There's always a couple really big sales that generate a very large conveyance tax.
Right,
But
right.
it's been relatively consistent.
It's been, okay, great, thank
Yeah, and the state, with regards to the grant, the municipal revenue sharing grant, is not going to any municipality, just so that folks know
you.
that.
It goes out.
And what that is basically a program where the state of Connecticut takes some of those funds. It comes from our sales tax revenue that every municipality generates from businesses in their municipalities, sends up to the state. The state then takes that, they parcel it out, they do some capital construction work themselves with it. Then they send some to towns and other programs, well, of which we are a beneficiary, not to get too complex. And then anything extra, we get that in our pro rata share of how much we sent to the state and how much every other municipality has sent to the state in sales tax revenue. And the email I received from the Undersecretary of OPM stated that the state projection for sales tax revenues is down significantly. Therefore, no municipality would be receiving that extra grant. That's the 800 grand that Chairman Leary had spoken to. I just didn't want it on the record that this was like a Southington thing only. It's not. But anyway, so. Does present a challenge for the upcoming budget because if I'm here, I don't know what I'm going to do, or recommending, I'm going to recommend to this fellow next to me
Zero.
that it's
Yeah.
Not only hurts this year,
Yeah.
hurts next year.
and next year we'll probably end up getting the grant after we budgeting zero.
That would
And you
be,
guys will see this sheet of paper and you'll yell at me because we have too many
That
revenue.
would be a pleasant upside.
It's always pleasant to get more revenue, yes.
Budget's not done yet.
Any more questions on revenue? Okay, let us move to expenditures.
The only item that is really, right now, first and foremost, that looks like it's out of whack so far this year, and I keep the board, starting around this time of year, apprised of where we may be suffering some weaknesses or some, unforeseen events. And right now, everything looks pretty good. We have the one item that's already been addressed. Chief and Deputy Fire Chief are here tonight to ask for some movement of some of those funds to take care of that as well. So, other than that, that's why there's nothing included with your packet, because there was nothing, other than that, there's nothing to look at right now. So far.
I was looking through the expenditures and there's line items, in several departments, it says PC lease. PCs, are we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
We lease all of our copiers are leased.
Oh, copiers, okay.
That's what most of them are.
Okay.
It makes more.
Really, personal computers.
It's all, any
IT
small
equipment,
equipment.
if you would.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so on the expenditures, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but it looks like a fire department is asking for $210,000. No?
No.
105.
What?
105.
But 105 from contingency and 105 from departmental transfer.
We'll talk about it when we get there. Yeah, it's the
Okay.
same 105.
Okay.
And I was hoping not to confuse folks with that. I just said that to the chief
I
outside.
had to read it a couple times.
When you get to that.
We'll take it up when we take it
Yeah,
up.
sure.
It's fine.
Whenever you're ready, absolutely.
So the rest of expenses are in line with budget for the most part.
Correct.
Okay, any questions on expenditures from anybody? All right, contingency line item.
Yes, the item that you see, that's what we call the general contingency, sometimes referred to as the town manager's contingency. And you'll see that there's very little usage of that through the end of the October approvals by this board. And you see the identification of those items right there on that spreadsheet. Most of it still being intact. You have an item on tonight's agenda for $59,000 to the Elections Department with regards to the 2-week early voting and all the expenses involved with that. And we'll talk to that when that item comes up as well. I've got a little bit of narrative on that I can share with you.
Can you keep it under?
I'll keep it under, I'll try.
Okay.
Okay. What? All right, let's get into review of the capital projects.
Yes, that was reviewed for the quarter ending 9/30 a couple months ago, so the next quarter ending is 12/31, and hopefully we'll have that, I will try to get that for your January meeting.
Okay.
We do that quarterly, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else to discuss financially, fund balances, any other issues? Okay. Let's go into subcommittee reports with just the emphasis on the financial aspects. So we'll begin with sewer.
Yeah, nothing that's going to be affecting the general.
Okay. We'll move into public works.
I was unable to attend.
A little lengthy, but it was good. It was a good meeting. Plantsville was brought up, which is pretty much done. Can't stop the dust when it's wash their car. They did a great job in going there.
In the bulky waste, the stickers are now available, are going to be available here in the, no, is it not treasurer, tax collector's office. So we're back to town hall for bulky waste stickers, whether it's an oversized trailer or the regular annual pass.
I think it's the Parks Department, if I'm right, that does the lights. Great, they did a good job. Yeah, the light poles all lit.
Friday night was really busy down here. It was
We have a plan to buy any extra of those fancy new lights that are along the road? Because it's not going to be long before somebody hits one, or we have an insurance claim and can't get the parts. Do we have spares?
We probably do, but that's a great point, because they'll probably.
Yeah, and then then we'll have to replace them all to be consistent. So I would say, I mean, the board could discuss it, but I would say we put in those fancy things. It's not going to be long before somebody hits one of them, or one of them, fails, and we're going to have to replace them. We might as well think of that now, or you got to replace them all to be consistent. There's a lot of them. So if you can get us a price and come back to us, and I'd hate to see the project get ruined at one, people hit the hop house several times, they could certainly hit a lamp on the side of the road. Okay, let's roll right into open space if nobody has any more public works questions.
So I have that also. There's a couple of things going on, but it's still.
Potential purchases.
Yeah, potential purchases.
All right, self-insurance, we have, it says through October 31st in our packet. Oh, October included with packet. November to be presented at the meeting.
We don't have that, do we?
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get an overview.
So
Mr.
for,
Bedoya, Mr.
Yeah,
Levin.
Yep.
I'll fill you in on November later.
okay, so for self-insurance, we have for the first 4 months of the budget year, the actual claims versus budget is basically even. It's less than $100,000 difference between the two totals, so it's pretty.
Okay, so you're saying we're at
We're
budget?
flat. Yeah, we're at budget. Less than, the
Okay.
difference between the two amounts is 95,000, so.
That's that,
Claims.
my handwritten page 404 summarizes the totals, those totals columns. That's where that shows at. We just received the November report yesterday. The report comes, it's a huge report. There's maybe 100 pages or so. It comes electronically. It's raw data. Our treasurer, normally Ann Anup, takes that and she deciphers it. One of us does. It's usually Ann. And what that does is to get it classified correctly, whether it's a Board of Ed account, a general government account, and, which in the broken out by what they call subgroups. Each employee group is in a different subgroup cost category. And that amount, the raw amount right now, the total amount, I was able to scroll down and get to the bottom of it. It looked like we were about $300,000 better than what that projection shows.
Two and a
So
half?
that'll be the month of November.
Was it 2.5?
Approximately 2.5 million instead of 2.8
Okay.
million. That's
That's
correct.
good. All right.
That's correct.
Do we update the IBNR
Once a year,
only once a year? Okay. So the end of the year.
correct.
Right, so with that, that puts us in a positive of 200,000.
That's correct, yeah. It was a nice report, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, yeah. Yeah, but as everybody knows, with health costs, it's
The
not.
positive 200 is just, we're where we want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get
Budget's
this
higher than
report,
claims.
yeah, when you get this report next month, that November will be filled in, and we've been getting the reports from Anthem around the 10th of the month, 11th of the month, so it's kind of sometimes hard to get it to you folks. Sometimes the self-insurance committee gets it because they meet later in the month, so that's just by the calendar that they get that before you folks sometimes.
Yeah, and
But
just to be clear,
sometimes
again,
we
it's-
can get it to in total, but and then sometimes Anthem has stuff that's in transit, almost like outstanding checks on a bank account that we usually wait a couple weeks in the month to make sure that all the old month stuff has been processed and billed to that month in that big report that they send us
Yeah.
before we explain it to the world.
And we pay about 2 million a month in claims?
A little more, yeah. Just to know real quick, like Mr.
Yeah.
Bedoya said, we're doing well now relative to budget. It is still up over prior. I mean, we budgeted 3 million or so over prior. Well, too, but just to be clear, we're doing well versus budget.
Yes, compared to last year, thank you, Joe, for reminding me. The first 4 months of the fiscal year, this fiscal year, were $981,000 more in claims than we were for the first 4 months of last fiscal year. That's that last set of columns on page 404, where it says the
And the reason is elective stuff? That's what we said last
trend,
time.
trend and
People
utilization.
coming out and going back
right?
to use.
Trend and
utilized
utilization and big claims. And
So
the
so
fact,
it's not just people going back into the utilized services, it's a mix.
It's a mix, and usually the
Yeah, it's a
biggest driver is the high dollar claimants.
Yeah. It always amazes me, and I know you guys have been on that committee a long time, that like 3 or 4% of all of our contracts will eat up literally 1/3 of our claims.
I mean, and that's not
1/3 of
unique
our
to
claims.
Southington.
Now, I guess that's not unusual from what our consultant says, but that just
Yeah.
blows me away. 4% or of our participants eat up or account for 33% or more of our claims. That's fascinating. That means there's some, when you get hit with a big claim, you get hit with a big claim. And we have stop-loss coverage too, thank God, but, still.
Well, it looks like, big, broad picture, we've got a good insurance policy, we offer it to the workers, it's working, and we're on budget. Big picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Budgets go up 9% a year.
Economic strike, do we have a meeting or anything? Okay. Okay, we're going to talk about our calendar. We have to approve our annual calendar.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I thought I had got something out to you folks.
No, we have, I have something here,
Okay,
Mr. Bose, if I can just go through with you.
absolutely.
If I can just go through with you the dates that are here, if everybody can think about them, because they're newly created. We'll get the dates for our main meetings, and we could go back later and start putting our budget workshops and
Yeah.
all of that in. Okay. The main meetings that I'm going to propose are for the Board of Finance, January 8th, if that works. February 12th with a 6:30 start, because we usually have the Board of Ed presentation. March 3rd, our public hearing on the budget. March 26th, we recommend our budget. April 9th, May 14th, we set the mill rate. June 11th, July 30th, no August, September 10th, October 8th, November 12th, and December 10th. We need a repeat, you could? Okay,
Hey,
I went
excuse me.
slow purposely just to.
If I may, just ask Mr. Lebenik. Joe, did you look at, there's one month where normally the board meets the second Wednesday, but there's a month we schedule a regular meeting because we kick that back to the third Wednesday to allow for some time. Do you have the 24 calendar in front of you?
Yeah, we did. I think we did we always meet the last week in July and the last week in March.
Okay, it
And
might
I
have
think
been,
the other ones were the second Wednesday of the month.
all right, so the regular meeting for the month of March will be March 26.
Correct,
Is that what you said?
yeah, March
Yeah, that's
26th.
what you said, March 26th, right?
Yeah,
And that-
January 8th, February 12th, March 3rd, March is the public hearing, March 26th, April 9th, May 14th, we set the mill rate, June 11th, July 30th, no August, September 10th, October 8th, November 12th, and December 10th.
I've got it.
Is that okay? Go forward with?
And that
Okay,
assumes,
motion,
right,
let's do a motion to approve.
sorry,
Yep,
Mr. just one
go
more.
ahead.
That assumes, so the council would be approving the budget on May 12th, correct?
That's correct.
That's on right? Okay, all right, so then I think those days work. Okay, okay.
And then if they approve it on the 12th,
Yeah.
we're ready on the 14th to set the mill rate.
That was in that draft I think I sent to you and the town manager. That's where I'm getting confused.
The
Sandy,
one we all ignored.
the one you, I guess, all ignored. I did send something out, but it wasn't the regular meeting. See, I was more concerned with budget than the
All right,
regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain? Okay, this calendar is official. Sandy, clerk's office is good to go. Thank you, Mr. Stanforth, for motioning it on.
I'll get it to the clerk.
We want to talk about, where are we going now? We'll go into the subcommittee reports, investment. We see that we're ahead $1 million on investment income, ahead of what we budgeted, which is favorable. I thought we would have started to draw some cash out for the library and, ahead of bonding.
We did. We received bond proceeds in October for most of that $12.3 million that we bonded. Most of that was for the library. Some of that, we had already extended cash out the door, so this is replenishing all of it. So now the library board, library project is totally bonded, $16.9 million of bonds sold over two bond issues, about a year and a half apart from each other. So that, and then, of course, we have a separate authorization of $5 million that you folks in the council approved. That
Did we receive that?
the grant, we are actually in the loop. It just happened today. I just got our email from the woman at the state who's running that program, and through Kim in Alex's office, who's done a great job getting all that information, tons and tons of info up to her to get the first half of the $5 million grant that, Chris Polis was very successful in bringing back to us. But, so right now, so we should be getting about 2.5 million of that first, because that's what it goes in tranches. It gets that, then the next tranche will be 1.250, and then when the final CO and everything is done, and I think there's a state inspection process or something, when that goes, and
So there's some
and the
percent
demo.
completion.
That's correct. And the
clause in
demo, yeah. We do have a little bit of extra cash now on hand for those, for the demo, and of course for any movement and purchasing of FF&E stuff,
Yeah,
furniture, fixture,
purchasing of a building
equipment.
or parking lot.
Yeah.
Okay. While we're on investment, any word on the Bank of America?
Have a closing date of tomorrow.
Oh, we do.
I'm not sure if it's going forward, but I'm told.
What would derail it? Anything in particular?
That I know of, but.
Okay, you just want to wait till it's done.
Real estate.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a big law firm and big national law firm doing the closing, so if it was two local firms doing it, I'd be done, but it's.
Okay. All right, any more questions on investments and our cash?
Well, thank you for the cash balances.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just showed that to Alex. I was just finishing up on it. Anna provided me some of the data, and I was just trying to keep it simple, but and I just said to Alex, if you guys want to see it something differently than that, let me know, and let us know, that's all. I mean, I think this is a decent brushstroke of it, shows you where we are.
We'll keep going with this then?
We'll keep adding every month.
Right.
December will be obviously,
So just read, just make sure I'm reading it right. So if I look at November, it says short-term cash, we have 96 million,
at the end of the month, yeah, 95, yeah.
and we have long-term cash, 21 million. So you add the two together, that's how much we have.
Correct,
And there's
Quick
other
question
cash.
on this.
117 million?
correct.
Can you clarify, when you say short-term, is that less than 1 year? How-
That's
how-
correct, yeah.
So when you
That's correct.
bucket it for interest rate
Yep.
purposes? Okay.
I can even include that in the next month's little definitions or stuff, yeah.
Okay, or a total. But it's just a matter of, we talked about this last time, and
I gotta do a total column.
you
on the
said the
side.
idle cash we invest,
Yeah.
we're very careful with the sweeping or whatever, we invest the idle cash. Times we're long on cash, other times we're a little shorter, but we have the rainy day fund, and we have the excess of the rainy day, the undesignated fund balance.
Yeah, every night, anything that's available in our bank accounts are swept into which you might call into an investment type of vehicle, being an overnight liquid asset. And the next morning, and how they do this all behind the scenes, sort of behind the curtain. And the next morning, when your checks start clearing and your wires and all that other stuff start clearing, there's money in there that they swept back into those accounts to make those payments. Next night, it's swept back into this investment. That investment is starting to come down a little bit, that portion of the investment. That's coming down to I think that's like 385 or something like that now on that sweep. They always start you out, they always get you to sign up for them. And they're good. It's great. It's great to have, but you can't leave too much in those bank accounts. You have to you have to move some of them out.
But the bottom line, every citizen should know that we are very strong with cash.
Yeah, we don't leave it sitting around in idle pools. Yeah, that's true.
No, and we also have a significant amount.
Yeah, we might have we have a very small, literally less than $5,000 in an insured money market account, municipal money market account, in one of the banks around us here. And there's less than 5,000 in it because their interest rates plummeted so low. I didn't even include them in there, and because it doesn't matter.
Why would we even have a small bank account locally?
They used
Why would
to,
we not have all of our money invested in one?
Well, we don't want to be invested all in one bank or
Okay.
one financial institution.
But
so
why
we
not
want-
in the big banks we've designated? Why would we have a little bit? We're sitting with $117
we used-
million. Why would we have 10,000 in a local
We,
bank?
we used to have it, we used to have quite a bit more with this bank. They had a very active government banker who went around to municipalities and actually got better rates for the towns. About 2 years ago, that fellow retired and the rates plummeted and the town has decided, and we have, asked them to, hey, send somebody in or do what you can for us. And I think that they're just, usually when a bank does not offer you too much in competitive rates, just my experience is they don't need the cash, or it's costing them too much to keep that cash on their balance sheet. You know what I mean? So they're not lending it out quick enough to earn something better than what they want to give us. So, but we want to keep it there as a, so we don't have to go through the machination of having to open up another account, which takes a couple weeks, believe it or not, to open up an insured money market account and the proper signatures, manager, myself,
Okay.
treasurer. So having it there for less than $5,000, believe me, even if it's earning 17 cents a month, we'll take it. Just so that if they get off their duffs and they start to be competitive again, we want them as an instrument to do that.
Jim, can I ask one more? I don't know if you wanted to. So you give a range of interest rates. Can you put a column what the average rate is?
We could do that, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a big range, so. I'm
But yeah, it's a
curious.
big range. Actually, let me talk to my treasurer first.
If
I
it's
don't,
possible, but if not,
yeah.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I don't know if we can give you an average. I mean, other than just taking the low and the high and then dividing by two.
No,
which
but
is
that ain't the
that's an oversimplification. Yeah, and that's really not telling an accurate
Where most of the money
picture.
is.
Yeah, correct. But, I can tell you right now, at the end of November, when you're seeing those short-term, more of it is more in the 4.5 to 4.75%.
Okay.
A lot of that is with this short-term investment fund of the state of Connecticut, which is managed by the state treasurer's office. And they think they just came under, they just came under 5 this month. I think in November, they came down to about 4 3/4. They're still,
That's still good.
they're still the highest
really
bet.
good, yeah.
But there's some folks that are right around them around 470 because I don't want all that money at the state either. The short-term investment fund it's a good vehicle. We use it to pay our bonds, actually. We make sure we got enough in there to make our debt payments, and we have an arrangement. I don't want to get into security of how we secure some of those payments, but we make our bond interest and principal payments from that account, and there's like there's a triple layer of attempt at protection of those wires. Another town just lost a wire a few days ago. I mean, wired it and it didn't go to where it should have went, and not for their debt service, to a vendor. We do not wire payments to vendors. So if there's vendors out there looking, ain't happening while I'm here. After I'm gone, you can do what you want. So we're not wiring payments. Mark Schroeder, God bless him, he used to, come on, Jim. No way. We do not wire payments.
There's a lot of wire fraud out there.
We'd have to put a whole bunch of controls in on
This
the
is not my
the
money.
banking information.
This is not my money. This is,
Segregation of duties.
Not my
Okay,
money.
Okay.
let's move along. We still have the fire commission liaison positions. Has anybody been to a fire commission meeting, other than the fire chiefs?
You been there?
So, just if anybody does, we'll keep it on here, so that we wanted to have a conduit, while the chiefs are here, we wanted to have a conduit to a direct line from the fire department back to the Board of Finance. And Mr. Pocock, Mrs. Mazzarella, I think you were on the lines of that. So if you want to reach out, that's your 2 first points of contact. And say, hey, this is going on, or that's going on, or I want to give you a heads up. I just wanted to have a nice, open, 2-way communication back and forth. So we'll keep that position there. Any other reports? Okay, let's move into public communications. Anybody from the public would like to speak? Okay. Hearing none. Board communications, member to member, member to public. Yes, sir.
There was a services vans
Yes, so I wasn't able to respond to the requester because they didn't put their. However, that is left there as a spare where they part it out as needed. So we've got several of those same models. Hustlers doesn't charge us anything. Leave it there. If they need a part off the engine, they go there, they rip it off and put it on our other. It's a great question, but it's a huge cost savings to the town.
That was, been around there for a long time. 15 years. It's hanging around there.
Quick turnaround on those vans too, which you want to. Charging us storage fees is. Thank you for that.
And they also do a great job, as the fire brass can attest to taking care of our fire trucks at a very reasonable rate.
And a lot of our engines. So thank you.
Okay. Any more board communications? I do have something. One thing I wanted to add, can we add to the agenda for next meeting a discussion on our bidding process, like how we're doing with that? I know we're going out to bid on more things, and just want to know how that's being received by the departments, how it's all working. Just an update. Let you could, decide how you want to present the update. I think this board needs, would benefit from knowing.
Mr. Chairman,
sir.
is that on the Planet bid process? Is that the
I don't
one
know if
you're
it's a
talking?
Planet bid, but,
Was that-
on Earth and Southington.
So you
yeah.
want to see how the Planet bid process?
I want to see how the new bidding process is working for us and get some insight into, is it working for us? Is it getting us the qualified vendors, qualified services at the most reasonable price? Is it working? Okay, I did want to address something very clearly to the public, and it's around the property assessments. I've been vocal on social media as a method to communicate with folks. I've received a couple of phone calls also, and people are a little bit, anxiety comes in when they know that property values in town have increased. There's no secret that the price of houses and property value, land, has increased a lot in Southington over the last few years. 3 years, 4 years, whatever. Not the expert on real estate. But we went forward with a hard revaluation. Every 5 years, we do a revaluation, and every second revaluation is what I call a hard revaluation, meaning it's more comprehensive and more detailed and tries to get at an accurate assessment of what the property is worth. It's causing some anxiety because people are saying, boy, they look on Zillow or Realtor.com and they say, if my house goes from being worth $200,000 to being worth $300,000, which is what I think when I look at Zillow, I'm really afraid when I multiply that by the current mill rate that my taxes are going to go up 30%. That's what's happening. That's a sentiment that's happening among our citizens. They're seeing the new values and they're becoming anxious over them. That's leading to conversations on, spending is out of control and various offshoot conversations. But I want to keep the focus clearly on what's going on with revaluation. So, I want to very clearly separate two things. One of them is the taxes needed to run the town. Very quickly, when we do our budget, we look at what are our services going to cost, and then we look at where's the money going to come from. Some is grants, some is service fees, interest income, various sources of income. Expenses far outweigh income. The difference is taxes needed. Revaluation doesn't change any of that. If we need a certain amount of dollars to run the town, that's what it is. That doesn't change with revaluation. Your house could triple, quadruple, it doesn't change. What does that mean? So what is revaluation? Revaluation has nothing to do with the budget for the town of Southington, the expenses of the town of Southington, at all. What revaluation does is it helps us determine who pays how much of the taxes needed. So what we have is a grand list, and they call it a grand list because it's a big list. On the grand list is every property in town, and then every property in town has a value. Property could be a house, a piece of land, a commercial property, a vehicle, a boat, could be furniture, fixtures, and equipment used within a business. And all of that property sits on the grand list, has a value, and that value is multiplied by a mill rate, and the value times the mill rate generates the amount of taxes that we collect from the community. We set the mill rate, meaning we say, okay, based upon the grand list we have and based upon the taxes we need the mill rate to be a certain amount. Then, all the assessment does is decide, help us determine which properties are going to pay how much taxes. So it's really where the butter is spread on the bread, but it doesn't have anything to do with how much butter or how much bread. It's just who's going to pay how much. So if, for example, very clear example, if every piece of real property, real estate, buildings, land, if every piece of real property doubled, the mill rate would be cut in half. That's a little bit of an over-exaggeration, but it's an example. So I don't want anyone to be alarmed when they hear we're doing revaluation, because it just appropriately sets the value of the property. Now, when you're valuing property, sometimes the commercial property goes up in value because demand is up for it. Sometimes there's a demand for big houses. Sometimes the demand is on a modest home. So you could have shifts on the mill rate as to what house went up more than another. Maybe a $2 million house didn't increase in value as much as a $200,000 house. I don't know. But that valuation of the property determines how much people pay. So just know that a couple things will happen for sure. Number one, property will be revalued. Some will go up, some will go down. The overall grand list, I expect to go up because property's been increasing. And then the mill rate will go down. But the taxes garnered or collected at the new grand list with the new mill rate should be the same exact taxes that are calculated with the old grand list and the old mill rate. That shouldn't change. That's point number one. Then what's going to happen, we're going to come up with a new budget, spending will likely increase. That's another story, another piece. But it all happens at once, so it's very, very hard for people to separate out the value of my house moved, the town had to increase, town needed more tax revenue, too many moving parts at once. I get it, but that's how the process works. We will keep an eye on it. And the last part of it is, people have been receiving these letters for the assessment. They come from a thing called Municipal Valuation Services, LLC, from Fairfield. There's a lot of information on here, but what they basically are is a sheet of information that helps the assessor appraise the value of a property. Everybody should have received one. They should look at it and make sure that the information is correct. And if it's not, they could, make notes on it and send it back. They could sign it and send it back and say, I don't have a swimming pool. I only have 2 bathrooms, not 3. They could adjust what's here. They could also request a full inspection of their house. There's a box you check. So I just want to remind everybody, there's been a lot of chatter about what do I do? But the biggest point, and I'll just end with it again, revaluation is not an attempt to raise taxes. It's not a tool to raise taxes. It's merely a way to decide which properties are going to pay which proportion of the taxes. And I'll leave it there, and anybody else could add a comment in, and I'll continue to answer questions, and I guess we all will, if questions come up from the folks we encounter.
Well, no, the most important point, like you said, is when people look at their increase of their house, you can't take the current mill rate.
Correct.
Because it's not going to be, like John said, the mill rate is going to be reduced, so you don't want to do that, because then it's going to seem like your tax is going up a lot, but that's not how you calculate it. The mill rate, don't take the current mill rate with the new value of your house, because the mill rate will be reduced. So that's the most important thing.
That's what's causing the anxiety. People
Yes,
say, I know
exactly.
property's going up and up and up, and the
And
house
here's the
across the
mill
street from
rate.
me just sold for $500,000. My gosh, when they revalue my house, my taxes are gonna double. That's the sentiment that's brewing out in the public. So,
Which-
good point.
Right?
Kevin.
That's true, right, Jim? I just want to,
I'm sorry,
You'll half the
What
mill
we're
rate
saying,
if the
that's true,
property
right?
doubles,
yeah,
in theory.
in theory.
Not
I-
vehicles, not personal
But
property.
you shouldn't take what's.
We have a couple
currently-
things happening. When do we reval again? 10-1-25 grand list? 10-1-25 grand list, so it's not this upcoming budget year, it's the next budget year. There is something, however, happening for the upcoming budget year, and it's these darn motor vehicles. Everyone complaining to their state legislators, maybe to you folks as well, about their cars. The state is instituting a statewide mill rate for motor vehicles, and that's going into effect of the budget that you're seeing. I forgot what the mill rate is, actually. Before, what it was if your mill rate did not exceed a certain amount, then you had nothing to worry about. We were always fine. Our mill rate was lower than what the state mill rate was for, the state maximum mill rate was for motor vehicles. So that rate is going to be, from what I understand, brought down, and so you're going to have a little bit of a shift to people's property. Commercial, residential, industrial. So that might cause a little bit of a shift into all property owners. But you are correct. It's the size of the pie doesn't change. The size of the slices does, based upon who eats more of the pie. In other words, if commercial and industrial values don't go up as much as residential values, residential section is going to eat up more of that pie. And that's just, a hard fact. I am a residential homeowner in town too. So I feel their pain. I feel everybody's pain, the same pain that everybody else does. If we revaled every single year, like some states mandate, by the way, it's a computerized mandate, very simple, very hardly any appeal process by their state mandates. What they'll do is they'll say, okay, you want to raise ranch, it's a certain size, they went up about 2%, everyone's is going up 2%. Bingo, it's statistical, it's computerized. If you own a colonial that's a certain size, a certain style, that went up 1.5%, everyone's is going up 1.5%. And it changes or maybe down 1%. And it changes every single year to avoid, I think, a term that I might apply to, Mr. Chairman, your analysis is sticker shock. Every 5 years we do this, right? It's either statistical, and on the 10th year, it's the full-blown physical, they ask to come in into your houses and make sure that that information on your fact sheet is accurate. So there's many other elements into that, but you are correct 100%, is that the size of the pie does not change. And every assessor, every municipality, 169 of us in Connecticut have to prove that when your revaluation is complete by sending information to the state of Connecticut Office of Policy and Management. They have a division which deals just with property assessments. And you have to show them, based upon the reports prior to the revaluation and after revaluation, that you did not generate any more revenue because of that of that revaluation, minus rounding, computerized rounding. So that is, in fact, 100% accurate. How it ends up getting divvied up, that remains to be seen until the revaluation figures are done about a year from now. Well, I guess they will be starting them because people have got the data sheets, and and that's correct. We had, the home that my wife and I own, they had us down for a finished basement. The house has been there, it's 50 years old, basement was never finished, a raw basement. Thank God, a great builder built it, local fellow, the basement's in great shape, but never been up.
Well, that was another
I appealed.
concern.
I
Another
appealed when
concern
we-
is people have been receiving these notices and
So-
living in their houses for years,
And
and all of
ignoring
a
them.
sudden now, a pool shows up.
Yep.
Like, how did that happen?
Yep.
I didn't put a permit in for one.
Yep.
Where did they get their data from? So some data validation is
So I think you're,
necessary. But okay, let's not
I
go.
think you hit the nail right on the head, to have folks check that data sheet. It's
Yeah, it's
important.
only in everybody's best interest.
Yep,
Honesty
absolutely.
and accuracy is always best.
If I could, what's the new rate on motor vehicles?
You know what, I forgot what it was. I had it in my,
MSRP and depreciation.
yeah.
Yeah, but what's the rate?
Yeah.
Oh, but it's still our rate? No, it's
No.
the
State-
state rate.
Right, yeah.
The valuation is different and the rate is different.
Oh, the valuation.
Straight line depreciation. No,
Percentage
there's
every year
no-
kind of
no
thing. Okay.
Okay. Administrative business, let's take all three at once. I'll read them, and then we'll take them. These are items where the money's already in hand. We just have to appropriate it to the right line, so it could be spent. First one, appropriation $3,000 even. Fund number 209, Special Revenue Police Canine Supplies. Number 2 is $750. Fund 209, Special Revenue Recreation, the White Christmas Program. And number 3, appropriation $2,200, Fund 209, Special Revenue Recreation Holiday Event Program.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second that.
Motion to second, any discussion?
Just quickly, Mr. Bose, do you know how much the Southington contributes? Program?
I don't think we spend anything on it. I think just the donations.
So it's pretty much all donations. Thank you.
If I'm wrong, I apologize. It's not that much. I don't
Okay.
think there's anything in the budget for it.
Okay. It just goes to our checkbook kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Now we'll go into administrative business, and we're going to speak with the fire department. There are two items here. One is 1A and 1B. A contingency transfer of $105,000 for fire department regular wages, and then a departmental transfer for $105,000 for fire department overtime. Chief, welcome, and as always, thank you for being here and helping us explain and sort this thing.
Absolutely, and I appreciate you being here. I'm just curious about the butter and bread conversation, if it's an English muffin with nooks and crannies. is
It
that
goes in
more
the
butter?
crannies.
Okay, just check.
So your house is in the crane, you're going to pay a little more.
My data sheet was incorrect, and I've already sent it in. So to describe this, talking with Mr. Bose earlier today, that 1A, 1B, it's a contingency transfer from salary contingency piece from that amount to my salary, regular wages account, and then a transfer from regular wages to overtime to cover my anticipated shortage. I will give you a little bit of background. Currently, we've expended about 73% of our current budgeted amount of our overtime, and we're about 42% of the way through the year. That is excessive. If we had the budgeted amount that the contingency amount we're looking for, we'd be at about 58% expended. Last year at this time, we were about 37% of our budgeted amount. So I'll get into that discussion, that 20% difference, and where we get to the $105,000. As you know, we were in a long process of negotiation and arbitration with the firefighters contract. One of the biggest stipulations of that was a staffing language clause. We did agree to a staffing language clause, didn't agree. It was an arbitrated award for the staffing language clause between management and labor. With that, it was if an individual's out for less than one shift, the first person out doesn't get replaced. And I don't want to get into the nuances of it. If somebody's out for more than one shift, or we have a known extended vacancy of more than one shift, that person's automatically replaced. So if they take 2 shifts off of vacation, I have to replace them. If I have somebody out, as Mr. Bose mentioned back in October, if I have somebody out currently like I do now for 8 months on long-term workers' comp leave. It's an extended vacancy. I have to replace them for each shift. So those were unbudgeted costs. And having conversations with Mr. Bose and Mr. Shota during this process, the assistant chief and I sat down and looked historically over the past 3 years of how many occurrences were there, what were the hours, and what was the rate at that. We looked at that 3 years of data, included all earned time, sick time, vacation, personal time, union leave, military leave, urban search and rescue, the state's deployment leave, workers' comp leave, and mandatory training leave. We didn't include in that process people attending the Connecticut Fire Academy recruit program for new hires. That's another challenge that we're trying to manage currently with the town manager and my board. I won't get into that because most of that's been in executive session. It'll be coming out a little bit more. So overall, we had an average of 243 occurrences over those 3 years.
243 what?
243 occurrences of somebody being out more than one shift.
Okay.
Again, that included comp, it included everything.
More than one shift contiguous.
Contiguous, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Or about 1,900 hours. Calculated at that point in time, came down to about 120,000, 119,904 based on our average overtime rate. So having that conversation, talking with Mr. Bose and Mr. Shota, I'm like, this is the amount it's going to cost us in addition to our current budget if this language gets approved. The language was awarded on the town to the town's favor. I don't know if you know the union's package was 100% replacement all the time, so we still have a mechanism in place to save some of that overtime cost. Contract didn't take effect until retro and everything August or end of August, September 1st, so that's where that number comes down to 105. That is my current projection. Actually, my current projection is about $103,000. I rounded up to 105 just for, buffer. I like round numbers. I do have concerns. That number was, that $105,000 was not budgeted for. Obviously, we know that. The wage impact was not budgeted for, minus 1 year, 3.25%, to kind of give us a little bit of a buffer, knowing it was coming down the pike based off of historical wages. So that's where we're anticipating a shortfall. Some things will be accounted for in the next operating budget. I will tell you there's certain things in our overtime budget that weren't accounted for. I'll take the onus on that for the past 2 years. Certain time off items, military leave was never budgeted for. I have a person that's in the National Guard, Air Guard, that is deployed. I have a new person we're hiring that's going to be in the Marine Reserves who's going to need time off, obviously federally, in order to replace them. So there's additional stuff you'll see January, February when we get there. I do want to point out, though, if you look at historically, fiscal year 2022, we were $74,000 under budget. Fiscal year 2023, this includes transfers into that account, we were $106,000 under budget. In fiscal year 2024, we were $48,000 under budget. So this is an anomaly for us, coming and asking for money. Again, a lot of that is subject to the wage impact piece of a 3.5 year negotiation process, as well as the staffing language. Mr. Bose was correct. I do have individuals out on long-term injury. I have one person that's out for 7 to 8 months. Again, because of that contract language, that equates to anywhere between $75,000 and $90,000 in overtime that is unbudgeted for. We are respectively asking for the $105,000 out of the salary contingency item because it was discussed in our negotiations and strategy piece. Anything above and beyond that, I am confident, and I've had conversations with the town manager, we can handle internally if there's anything above that piece. So we're looking at our current budget amount of $628,002. We're looking at what would have been an estimate back then of 740 or 734 with that 119,904 put in there. My current projection is just about 743,000. So I'm still going to be short, but we can handle that internally. I will say there's always a conversation regarding overtime and stabilizing the overtime. Multiple fire chiefs have stood before you. I've stood before you in various means as an interim chief and assistant chief, and now the chief again. Staffing is going to stabilize our overtime piece. It's not necessarily going to reduce it in full, but it will stabilize it and make it more manageable and more accountable to you and to the taxpayer as well. Again, that's a shift. It depends on where you want to put the money. Do you want to put the money in a salary account, or do you want to put money in an overtime account? I know there's been concerns about our staffing. I've heard conversations that we have a staffing problem, or a scheduling problem, not a staffing problem. I'll rebut that at any point in time you want. Our current shift matrix for career personnel is a very common one throughout the Northeast. It's not our issue. Our issue is we do the very, very best with the bare minimum amount of people that we have. And honestly, I'll stand before you every year, and we need more. In addition to that, you'll see in reports from, I'm going to get out of the overtime piece a little bit. There's commentary on social media and stuff like that regarding the use of mutual aid. We use mutual aid in order to supplement our staffing piece. We run a very tight, efficient, somewhat and fairly effective fire service, or fire department, but we can't do it all. Unfortunately, our volunteer numbers are dwindling. We are trying to manage that. We have 34 on the roster now, all very active and very engaged. Love every single one of them. I always have. Unfortunately, it's just the timeliness of response and their availability. Again, not diminishing my department at all, any portion of it, but we're straddling the line as to our reduction, or the ability of us to provide our services and where we're going to end up suffering. So that's where the request comes in for the overtime transfers in order to maintain, follow that staffing language according to the contract, absorb the costs of unanticipated injuries. I have 2 people out on comp now, actually. One should be back, knock on wood, 3 weeks, but he's been out for 3 months. Again, so there's unanticipated. I will say that we do have some mechanisms in place that we're going to temporarily employ next year. Again, I can't talk to them in public just yet because they've been discussed in an executive session to manage the overtime scare, I'm going to call it a scare, that we have for the people going to the academy. That's all driven by retirements. I have 2 people one person that's retired, another person that is retiring in January. I have 3 that have announced their retirements for June. So there's a training piece. So I'm going to be in that training gap for about a year, if not longer. So we're trying to incorporate some mechanisms in order to absorb those costs. So I welcome any questions. I know I talk fast. You've seen me more than once, so you should be used to it by now.
If you don't
Please.
mind, I'm sure everybody has. And I understand the need to replace people, being a former board fire commission. I mean, you have a baseball team of 9 people, one person goes out, do you play with 8?
Yeah,
Or do you replace it and play with 9 people? So I get it.
And we can't forfeit.
Yeah, no,
So-
so, I get that. Now, the union was without a contract for many years. Back pay that we had to come up with?
Yes, there was a retro pay, and that was accounted for, and Jim could probably speak to that better than I can, in terms of the salary, the regular salary piece, as well as the overtime piece. We did take a hit, and Jim was nice enough to reclassify some of the stuff. We did take a hit in the salary piece, and as for this year, as well as the overtime. I think overtime this year was about $20,000 that we couldn't reclass. That was a hit in the current budget as well. And again, the wage impact for the first year was about $40,000. So there's a $60,000 we were behind from the
And I
get-go.
know we put some money aside, knowing that the contract was
Yep.
we'd have to come up with some money. I didn't see anything
We,
budget with that.
this board approved some carry forwards, what we call appropriations in force. It's really,
Yeah.
we just call them just locally carry forwards of amounts that we had budgeted for wages and other items for fire, for the retroactivity, if you will.
Every year
And then
we kept adding on.
and we kept carrying it forward every year until this year is when it took effect. And that's what the chief is referring to when you make the payment to all the hours that are owed for those 3 years and a couple
The
of months.
3
I
plus,
believe,
yeah.
right? So that's a long time. And then we allocate the amounts that went prior to this fiscal year towards the carry forward, because that's what it was for.
Okay.
And that's what we've always done, and that's the proper thing to do.
So we didn't need to do anything for that because the money was there.
Correct.
Okay.
The board, this board and the council ultimately approved those funds. So you won't see that in the original budget, but it is an expenditure of the town
And rightfully so.
in the
I mean,
new year.
that's-
Yeah.
that's what
And
we-
I will say, I mean, we may have had some differences in 2017 in a previous position that I was in, or maybe not differences in the right word. I've always worked very well with all of you. I am fiscally responsible to the taxpayer and to this board and to the town. I believe the previous chief and myself, and now the assistant chief and I, we manage our funds very, very well. The fire department is often looked at as, and we're an expenditure. We're a large insurance policy. But we've made some changes fiscally through ordinance and some revenue shares. So we do bring in revenue. It's not significant, but I do want to say on our behalf that we do bring in revenue between our fee schedule for the fire marshal's office and certain response structure as well. So Again, it's minimal, but it's an offset. Right now, we're about
Between you and I think you can do more on the response end, but that's,
we've had that discussion.
yeah. But thank you for updating me on the total contract.
If aside from the folks on the long-term disability, the regular sicknesses, the illnesses, we all, every one of us face with work, have we seen a change in the pattern of those? Like, for example, when people call in, when a firefighter calls in sick, they call in sick for the entire shift?
Not
They don't say, I'm just sick for the morning, oh, I feel good in the, 10 hours in and they come in? Is it for the whole shift they call out?
Yeah, yes and no. It's both, I'll be honest with you. Because of the language that's in the contract, if say their spouse is working, and their child is homesick from school and someone needs to take care of the child, they're allowed by contract to take time off in order to take care for the child.
And that's called sick time.
That's under sick time as well, yes. We have had one or two individuals this fiscal year, and one specifically, had a significant personal injury, ended up breaking his leg. So he was out for a long.
Yeah.
We have several members, well, we've had a member who's recently become a new father. And I won't get into some of the details, but we've had several members whose or family members, spouses, et cetera, or whatever, have suffered extensive illnesses, significant illnesses. So by contract, they're allowed to stay home to take care of them as well. And we work through that with the town manager and HR and stuff in terms of the concurrent FMLA, where we stay on top of that. It's been a little bit more significant this year. We do have some challenges. I do have some personnel that have some personal challenges that we're managing, and it's just fallen. This year's just been tough, and unfortunately, it's December.
But it's not a pattern change.
No, it's not a
Like,
pattern change.
I'm going to call out sick for this shift, next sick, I think I'll call out sick for the next one. It's not that, it's,
No, and it's not that. Will I say, are there instances where that could occur? But in order to track and pull that data, I'd be remiss to be like, you're abusing sick time. That would be disingenuous of me. As from the firefighter standpoint, especially for the gentlemen the gentlemen and ladies, well, had ladies on the volunteer side, on the line, certain things that you and I can get away with in the office world. I wake up in the morning, I crick my neck, my shoulder hurts, I pulled a muscle working out or doing whatever, doing yard work. We can manage through our day that way. These individuals, it's a labor-intensive job, as you know. Same thing comes with a head cold. You have a head cold, you're severely congested. We can manage through our day and muddle through. We may be miserable. We may be miserable anyways, but we may be miserable. These individuals, if they have to go to a fire, have to obviously be in relatively peak condition in order to put that mask on and put yourself into a claustrophobic position and endure that even for a short term. There are, huh?
And they're violating OSHA.
And they're violating OSHA for that, depending on the level of sickness. There's certain, if you're not at near peak physical readiness at that point, you're better off because you end up doing more damage to yourself or risking somebody else's injury as well, so.
Just for clarification, calls out sick to take care of their child.
Yes.
You don't have to replace them if all your other manpower is okay, because it's only one day.
It's only if it's 24 hours or less, yeah, or it's my discretion.
Right. Right.
So
Well, obviously,
I will say the contract language is
Yeah.
very ambiguous.
But for that one instance, you know.
For that one instance, I don't,
May,
but,
because you might need
so
that.
say the individual's having an elective surgery and he's gonna be out for 2 shifts in a row, and he calls out for 2 shifts, then we replace, yeah, so.
and Chief, you can't, with the new language in the contract, you can't squeeze back and say, we're not going to staff Company 5 today. We have a couple people out, everybody's coming, we're going to run out of headquarters, or we're not going to staff Company 3.
I would
Can we
say,
squeeze back?
I would say, and there's mechanisms in place temporary that we've discussed internally with the board and with the town manager that I don't want to get to in public session currently.
Okay.
There are mechanisms in place that we're looking at as a temporary fix. During the contract negotiations, and again, a lot of that was closed door, we discussed our current level of staffing at 5s, 3s, and headquarters. If we were to is industry standard known as rounding out a station and bringing people down, I believe with the current staffing language, I would look at that as bargaining in bad faith, personally. That's up to the lawyers to decide. Is it a management right? I believe so, but I think because of the way we negotiated the language, we'd have a fight on our hands. I could see a challenge from the union, and it could go either way. And I've had conversations with our legal. Get a water cooler over here, and one over there.
Okay.
I do have one thing to add, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Just to brief the Board of Finance, this is not just a fire issue.
Is your microphone working?
It is, I think it's working.
It is.
It's not just a
You need new microphone.
fire issue. It's going to be a townwide issue, and actually an issue for everybody who works. Starting January 1st of 2025, there's what's called a no policy for any. That means that employee is now going to be illegal to. As much as I want to in the afternoon and today I want to go lay health breaks are included in have a chart flow chart to help our department heads navigate this challenge. But we are also implementing, as you may know, a new payroll time and attendance system. Before we had that system in place, we don't have it in place yet. Before we had the system in place, segregate the 40 hours. Hours is once you hit the 40 hours.
So it's cumulative over time, over a year?
Correct. So with this new system that we're having in place, we'll be able to.
Is this the state law for every employer?
I believe it's 50.
Employer over 50?
50 or more.
50 or more. We'll be able to track it more once you hit your 40 hours. Then the union contract language comes in. You can ask for a note after 3 days of a doctor. That first 40 hours, it's a.
And that's got to be consecutive? Can you do 3
No.
days, take 1 day?
Whatever you want. You take an hour today, an hour next week, an hour next week.
3 hours today, 2
Oh,
hours
so
tomorrow.
once you get to 40,
If you're running late for work.
yeah.
So,
So
there's no longer,
there's
I
no-
can get disciplined for being late to work anymore.
Notice period, no,
Out to the delegation, our delegation. And the state ask them, they nice idea, but hoping the next session that some of these issues can get. With that.
I think some of it came out of COVID too, the mental stress.
Yeah, man.
okay, let's go. All right, I think we didn't have a motion on, I read them in, but we did not have a motion,
I'll
right?
make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion to approve, second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries 6-0. Second one,
Is that
Depart-
for A and B or?
that's for A and B.
Okay.
Let's make a note that that's, A and B were read in, that's for A and B. Department transfer, $2,460, general fund, fire department, life insurance.
Motion to approve?
Second,
Motion second, any discussion? All those,
Contract based also?
This is the life insurance for the volunteers. It's part of their benefit package for the volunteers. We've been having some issues with our current vendor in terms of calculating the benefit. Our executive assistant, who's fantastic, has been fighting with them, I think, since May in terms of getting the right numbers. They bill in arrears, which I find weird, so they're always a year behind. So like they billed in 2023 for 2022, et cetera. So this is basically the backlog of 2 years of life insurance that should have been paid out in the 2 previous fiscal
is it
years.
through Kerma?
This is through Boston Mutual.
Okay.
As part of their incentive, their life insurance and their incentive. Actually, their incentives from Mission Square. This is just through Boston Mutual. She is researching new companies, but because of the number of employees for the volunteers we have, nobody wants to touch us. It's too small. It's too small of a nugget for them to pick up, whether it's the Hartford or something else like that. So we're still researching options, but that's the reason for the transfer.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Yep.
Second? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries 6-0. Number 3, department
Thank you,
transfer. What?
Thank you, Sis.
Oh, thank you, fire department. Department transfers, 59,000, general fund elections, temporary seasonal.
I make a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to get it. That should read a contingency transfer. That was on me. Sorry. Just so, for Angela for the minutes as well.
Okay, so we have a motion on it. Do we have a second?
I thought you did.
Motion and a second for a contingency transfer, 59,000. Elections, temporary season. Okay, any discussion?
In the long run, we can figure this all out and do it at a more.
Yeah, the good news on this is what we call the town manager's contingency line item. And you may remember discussions, or maybe if you don't, through the budget process, we allocated $50,000 just in case some of this stuff, really
Knowing that
became.
it's going to
yeah.
cost someone.
So it cost 59, all in all, that's
Came
not,
pretty close.
59 more, that's cut now, comes out of what we call Alex's contingency, so
And
that's
it was
not.
the first year, so maybe we can do things different.
You gotta be careful. You gotta be careful with it.
I mean, obviously, you want election integrity. We don't.
I think it's gonna help us get a cost at least for budgeting purposes, so. That's true.
Our hands are tied on times and dates.
The primary was very sparsely voted, dearly voted, but the regular election was quite heavily attended, quite heavily attended. Yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Which
now
is
we're not
great.
voting in the regular polling place, so that should have been down.
But you still got to staff
But
it.
You still gotta staff
at
it,
the
exactly,
regular time, yeah,
exactly. What,
exactly, yeah.
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Wayne. You hit the nail right on the head, yeah.
All right.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Number 3 carries 6-0. Number 4 comes to us in 3 parts. Appropriation 27,353, appropriation 3,735, and appropriation 17,815 are rec park pool cover, rec park kiddie pool pump, and Panthorn playground parts.
A motion to approve.
Second.
I do have,
Motion and a second discussion.
the ARPA funds, where are these coming from? These are,
Those are the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Well, yeah.
We got just shy of $13 million altogether. And that was actually cash every town in the United States received those funds. And this is sort of you're kind of seeing the amounts get a lot smaller because these are the amounts that we have left in that various department, or the
You
departments who
did
are.
the project, you had a little bit left over and said, I have to use
Correct.
it,
We have to use it, so they've.
or we lose
It
it.
gets,
That was
well,
my
it's got to be repurposed for things that are ARPA eligible. That's important to note for the record. And the council's approved these, obviously, items, and they're before you for the moving of the money.
So let's take a roll call vote on this?
can I just?
'Cause it's-
ask
oh,
one
please,
more?
absolutely.
When do we have to spend these monies by? When
Yeah,
is all this going to be over?
Well, they have to be obligated by by 12/31/2024. The cash out the door
Okay, well, that's, yeah.
a year or so later even, actually. So they will be, matter of fact, I think item 5 is going to get us totally obligated. Now, it's hard to get a definition from the federal government as to what obligated means. There's been
All
some
right.
consortiums of state and local governments, and we think with these actions, we've got it all taken care of.
Thank you. No, you can.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Pocock Jr.,
Yes.
Mr. Bowdoin,
Yes.
Ms. Mazzarella,
Yes.
Mr. Stanforth,
Yes.
Mr. Lebeniak,
Yes.
Chair Larry.
Yes.
Chair Larry. 6-0.
6-0 on a roll call vote. Okay, now we look for our favorite
No,
motion.
no,
Oh, yeah,
5,
the, no more ARPA.
West Main Street.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, this is a continuation of the Plantsville project that, as the board aware, went over budget due to unforeseen circumstances regarding trolley tracks. About 18 inches below. Back to CROG, the State Department of Transportation has assurances that they are covering most of credit to Jim and his team. They've been scraping dollar back to we're going to be allocating more to it. Private duty where it's not eligible.
Unless we come in with some cost underruns again,
Somewhere else.
but as long as we're
Only have 2
as long as
weeks
we're
to decide.
obligated, if we're obligated in that area, I think we might have to come reshuffle stuff just because of the way we do our budget and authorization process, but that does not mean we're in violation of the federal.
Gotcha.
We're good.
Thank you.
So how does the 288,000 get paid?
Just like, this is going to be allocated from the remaining funds that are still out there, and we are obligated via contract with those folks who are working on that Plantsville project already. I think we can demonstrate, matter of fact, I don't want to say, I know we can demonstrate strong obligation of that project right now and of these. Of course, now when you're governing bodies, you folks being the finance board, the council being the council, the ultimate board, showing that these funds have been approved in our budget processes, that.
So who's
we are,
paying?
but we are contractual right
Still
now.
the same question, though. Who is paying the
We,
288,000?
we have the cash. We are, the town.
The town will
Yes.
pay outside of the ARPA grant.
No, this is within the ARPA grant right now. This is
They
still
sent us
within.
the money already for everything.
All right, but it said right here, in discussing ARPA reporting requirements of the Finance Department, it appears police time is not eligible. As a result, well, if it's not eligible, we're taking 287 out of the ARPA.
We're utilizing 287 of the ARPA funds, which it would have been a higher amount, but we extracted police private duty, or extra duty, private duty.
So we pulled the
amounts from that.
287 on our side and allocated the 287 that we were going to use for police overtime to other aspects of the project.
It wasn't 287.
No, there was a
for
prior
police.
memo from Mr. Rapone for a higher number.
Yeah.
Where Mr. LaPre's,
Correct.
Rex items were not going to be.
We extracted the police private duty amounts
that
from
playground.
the original request by
And
town
replaced it
engineer.
with other
Well,
ARPA
correct.
authorized
That's correct.
spending, which means the town itself will pay the 287, will pay the police overtime
The 48,902.
outside of ARPA.
Correct.
Okay.
For the recreation.
That was the police part.
That was the police portion of it, correct.
Okay.
So ARPA's paying for that, but only with those projects that are deemed eligible under the federal grant for the ARPA funds.
So then we're looking for an appropriation, ARPA Fund 210,
For 287, 840, 850.
so we need to make a motion to appropriate from Fund 210, ARPA funds, 287,849.35.
Make it 50. Round it up to 50, 850.
850.
Yeah, we don't play with pennies. I'll throw the 65 cents in.
I'll give it,
So would somebody make that motion and
That's
then
what this,
we'll.
this ugly
move
tie is worth 65. I'll throw that in.
forward. 65
I'll give you a
cents.
quarter.
So we already had a motion, no?
Not on this one.
No.
I don't think we had a motion on
Make
this
it
one.
again, Wayne. Didn't you make a motion?
Not on this. We didn't have it sorted.
Oh.
Go ahead, Jim.
I'll make a motion to approve the ARPA Fund 210 to the West Main Street project of $287,850.
We have a second.
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Bodoin,
Yes.
Ms. Mazzarella,
Yes.
Mr. Stanforth,
Yes.
Mr. Pocock Jr.,
Yes.
Mr. Lebeniak,
Yes.
Chair Larry.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0 on a roll call vote. Okay, looking for our favorite motion at 8:26.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned
Merry
at
Christmas,
8:26.
everybody. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Chief, Deputy Chief.
Jim, how long?
or
you
Assistant